Добрый день.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear guests. Today is the 17th of January, 2022. It's noon. We're beginning the session of the Dissertation Council. So let me begin the session of the Dissertation Council. The dissertation is submitted by Viktor Eremin. The dissertation is submitted in conformity with the requirement for the academic degree of the candidate of legal sciences. Scientific specialty is 513, private law, civil law sciences. The topic of the dissertation is arbitrability of disputes involving public actors. Under the relevant order issued by the Academic Secretary of St. Petersburg State University, number 108951, I have been appointed the chairperson of the Dissertation Council. I'm Vladimir Papandopoulou, Doctor of Legal Sciences, St. Petersburg State University. The other members of the Dissertation Council have been appointed by the same order. They are Professor Olga Makarova, St. Petersburg State University, Professor Yuri Monastyrsky, College of Lawyers, he's to the right of me. Some members of the Dissertation Council are participating in the session remotely. They are Professor Vladimir Yarkov, Doctor of Legal Sciences, Ural State Legal University. Professor Yarkov, can you hear us and see us? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I can hear you and see you. Thank you. Professor Svetlana Maros, Doctor of Legal Sciences, Caspian University, Kazakhstan. Professor Maros, can you hear us and see us? Yes. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I can hear you and see you. The academic degree seeker, Viktor Eremin, is also here. The research advisor, Doctor of Legal Sciences, Professor of the Department of Commercial Law, Professor Alex Skvortsov, is also here. I would like to ask the members of the Dissertation Council who are participating in the session remotely to switch off their microphones. However, please make sure that your microphone is switched on when you are given the floor. This session of the Dissertation Council is being recorded and broadcast on the official website of St. Petersburg State University. And it is also being interpreted from Russian into English. You can ask your questions and make comments about the dissertation using the email address that you can find on the official website of St. Petersburg State University. The questions are supposed to be about the research or about the presentation. This will allow you to participate in the academic discussion. The technical personnel will refer the questions to me, and I will read them out during the academic discussion. The questions are supposed to be relevant to the contents of the dissertation. The authors of the questions are to write down their name, position, and workplace. The questions that are not relevant to the contents of the dissertation and anonymous questions will not be read out. Under the order on the procedure of granting academic degrees at St. Petersburg State University, issued by St. Petersburg State University, This session of the Dissertation Council is duly constituted, provided at least 2/3 of the members of the Dissertation Council are present. The total number is not to be fewer than 4 people. This Dissertation Council consists of 5 people, 5 of which are present, including 2 people who are participating in this session remotely, and they can hear us and see us. Therefore, we have a quorum. I would like to ask the representative of the Department for Dissertation Council Management to make an attendance list. The agenda is as follows. The session will last for about 2 hours. Number 1, please be patient. I will read out all the items on the agenda. I will have to interrupt you if you do not keep within the time limits. So the agenda is as follows. The chairman's presentation about the documents submitted by the degree seeker and their conformity with the requirements. Replies to the questions, if any, about 5 minutes. The academic degree seeker's presentation providing an overview and findings of the research, about 15 minutes. Questions to the degree seeker regarding the presentation, no more than 2 minutes for each question. Replies to the questions, no more than 5 minutes. Reports on the dissertation. The council members will be taking the floor in turns. About 10 minutes per person. Next, the chairman's report on the dissertation. About 10 minutes. The academic degree seeker comments about the reports on the dissertation and replies to the questions, about 20 minutes. Open discussion. The floor will be given to the members of the audience. They can give a brief account of their ideas or ask questions about the research, no more than 5 minutes per person. It is emphasized that those who are willing to ask a question should fill in the registration form and give their full name, state their workplace, position, and academic degree before the talk. Next, the chairperson will read out the questions received via email. It is emphasized that the questions, which take more than 2 minutes to read, will not be read out. Next, replies to the questions, no more than 2 minutes per question. Presentation of the dissertation supervisor, no more than 3 minutes. Deliberations of the members of the Dissertation Council before the open balloting on conferring or non-conferring the academic degree. The deliberations are not broadcast. Next, open balloting, vote counting and recording the results in the protocol. Next, making a decision on whether to confer or not the academic degree. And the last item on our agenda is the academic degree seeker's closing speech, no more than 2 minutes. Dear colleagues, do you have any questions or objections to the agenda? As far as I understand, there are no questions or objections. Now let me proceed with the agenda. First of all, please leave your telephones on the silent mode. The council members participating in this session remotely are advised not to switch off their mobile phone so that we can contact you in case of a technical failure. Let me begin. The first item on our agenda is the chairman's presentation about the documents. The dissertation is submitted in conformity with the requirements for the academic degree of the candidate of Legal Sciences, Scientific Specialty 513, Private Law, Civil Law Sciences. The topic of the dissertation is Arbitrability of disputes involving public actors. The dissertation was approved for the defense by the order of the Academic Secretary of St. Petersburg State University. Mr. Viktor Eremin wrote and completed his dissertation in St. Petersburg State University. He was a postgraduate student here. His research supervisor is Professor Alex Skvortsov. The degree seeker has published 11 research papers. All of them have been published in the peer-reviewed journals recommended by the Ministry of Education and Science. All the documents comply with the requirements and they're stored in the dossier. The representative of the Department for Dissertation Council Management has the copies of the documents. Before giving the floor to the academic degree seeker, I would like to ask the members of the Dissertation Council if they have any questions to the academic degree seeker, and if it is necessary to read out the list of documents submitted by the academic degree seeker. Dear colleagues, what's your opinion? I don't have any questions. I don't have any questions either. So there are no questions. Now I give the floor to the academic degree seeker. So the floor is yours. You have 15 minutes. Thank you very much. Dear Chairperson, dear members of the Dissertation Council, the topic of my dissertation is Arbitrability of disputes involving public actors. This is a comprehensive research since it deals both with material law and substantive law. Dispute resolution, which involve public actors, is a comprehensive issue since the concept of public actors in Russian legal science is very controversial. Therefore, it was necessary for us to focus on the category of the public actors, although this may be regarded as the shift of the focus of the research. However, I believe it was strictly necessary to provide a detailed information about the concept of public actors. The Russian law does not make any difference among public and private legal entities. Of course, there are companies which are public legal entities because this is their form. However, they are different only in very small aspects and very few aspects. Different public actors sign contracts with an arbitration clause. However, the role of that arbitration and the role of the arbitration tribune still is not clear. Public actors should include legal entities established by law, by public law, as well as public legal entities established by special law. Therefore, I included in the scope of my research different types of public actors. The most challenging aspect was to regard legal entities as public actors. So the criteria I chose was the concept of control, which is referred to in the Russian law. So again, public actors should include legal entities established by public law entities as well as public legal entities established by special law, public law companies, state corporations and state companies. And controlled by the aforementioned actors through the ability to dispose of more than 50% of the total votes attributable to the voting shares. Therefore, the public actors include public legal entities, a wide range of legal entities with state participation, which I call in my research public legal entities, both commercial and non-commercial, and other types of public actors, such as courts, legislative bodies, etc. However, the latter is not a clear issue in the research. After the reform of the arbitration system, the policy in the area is quite conservative. Unlike the liberal system, it includes strict control over the arbitration system. The policy also includes the concept of admissibility to the arbitration tribune. And here the arbitrability comes in. However, the state policy just provides a framework, and it is the state courts which are instrumental in this area. In many cases, they refuse to take cases because there's so much uncertainty in the area. I also defined arbitrability, which is regarded as an aspect which includes the compliance of the case to the requirements which are necessary for the case to be heard in the court of arbitration. This definition was not included in the statements to be defended. However, I still needed some working definition of arbitrability. Arbitrability as a category has undergone lots of transformations. I made a revision of the research papers available and came to very relevant conclusions. I suppose that the Russian law does not have strict rules for arbitrability. Therefore, this uncertainty is resolved by the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court shows a negative attitude to the arbitrability itself and also a conservative approach to arbitrability. I suppose that the Russian law should include a list of rules which will allow the companies to take the matter to the court of arbitration. I also made a research of papers published abroad. In this regard, arbitrability is also quite uncertain. The attitude is either very liberal and lack any limitations. This approach is common in European countries. On the other hand, the approach can be quite strict, and the law might have specific rules which require approval of the executive authorities to be allowed to take the matter to court. The international law also deals with arbitrability in different ways. The dissertation also deals with the public element, which has an impact on the arbitrability. This concept is not enshrined in Russian law, and it is not included in the doctrine. The court uses this concept, however, in their work. And the courts say that public interest, budget financing and participation of a public actor means that there is a public involvement in the matter. Therefore, I believe it is so important to study the concept of the public element, which is not described in the Russian law and was created artificially. I suppose this concept limits arbitrability. In the future, I see two scenarios. The first one is a conservative one, when the public element is incorporated in the Russian law as a criteria for arbitrability. And the next scenario is the liberal one, which will eradicate the public element from the law enforcement practice. However, I believe that this instrument is a barrier for the participation of public actors in arbitration. Many issues are not covered by the Russian legislation, so we cannot come to the conclusion that all public actors can take their matters to the Court of Arbitration if there is no explicit ban in the Russian law. The issue is more comprehensive. Public actors also may come across the issue of unenforceability when it comes to arbitration. As a result, they will not use arbitration clauses in their contracts. And this will make the matters even more complicated and challenging. Thank you. Thank you very much. Dear members of the Dissertation Council, are there any questions? No questions? There are no questions. Let me proceed with the agenda. I will ask the members of the Dissertation Council to read out their reports. I will ask them to ask their questions, and after that I will read out my report on the dissertation. Let me remind you that the academic degree seeker can answer the questions after each report or after all the reports have been read out. Which one do you prefer? I will answer all the questions after all the reports have been read out. Another remark I would like to make. All the reports have been published on the official website of St. Petersburg State University. Therefore, I suggest that you read out only the most relevant parts of your reports and the questions to the academic degree seeker. This is up to you, of course, but this is my suggestion anyway. So, I give the floor to Professor Olga Makarova. Dear members of the Dissertation Council, dear guests, the dissertation is very interesting and I was really impressed by it. My report talks about the relevance of the dissertation. The dissertation is relevant because public actors various public actors are participating in the economy. Therefore, it is necessary to resolve the disputes that they have. So a question arises if these disputes can be resolved by the Court of Arbitration. And the task of the dissertation is to define arbitrability and to decide whether the case can be taken to the Court of Arbitration. I would like to emphasize that the academic degree seeker has included more than 300 items in the reference list, including different types of research papers. The main research findings to be defended talk about the public actors and about arbitrability. The academic degree seeker also focuses on arbitrability and public elements, and he focuses on the relations between these two categories. He also deals with different categories such as public interest, public funding, and so on. The dissertation also has a theoretical significance. It contributes to the legal discourse in general and to the concept of arbitrability in particular. However, some research findings seem quite debatable to me, and I hope the academic degree seeker will be able to provide some clarifications. My first critical remark is about the structure of the dissertation. The first chapter deals with the commercial arbitration. How do you understand commercial arbitration? The next chapter is about the doctrine of arbitrability. It says that it has an impact on different issues, but I suppose this is not quite clear and is not quite the case. The title of the dissertation is Arbitrability of Disputes Involving Public Actors. So I think it would have been logical to focus on arbitrability and its criteria first, then to define public actors, and after that to show which disputes can be resolved in the Court of Arbitration. There are some repeats in the dissertation. You also use some abbreviations which are not common. So I suppose you should have given the list of abbreviations at the beginning of the dissertation. The research finding to be defended, number 1, page 10, does not have any novelty. The research finding to be defended, number 2, page 11, gives a definition of public actors and public legal entities. However, it is not clear what do you mean when you say public-private entities. The academic degree seeker points out that the Russian law does not provide any detailed information in this regard and creates legal uncertainty in this regard. Therefore, there is no clear interpretation of the arbitrability. I suppose this is not quite the case, so could you please clarify? It is not quite clear why the resolution of this issue can be achieved by the implementation of the doctrine of legal entities of public law in the Russian law. Probably you are confusing some entities here, such as the legal entity of the public law and public legal entity. Research finding number 3 does not have any novelty. Moreover, it is contradicting research finding number 4. In this research finding, you write about the fact that public element is the reason for non-arbitrability of the dispute. And my last critical remark. I would like to ask your opinion about the concept of public participation and arbitrability. Which of the concepts that you are describing in the dissertation do you agree with? Do you have a concept of your own? The academic degree seeker's opinion on the matter is not clear in the dissertation. So I would like to emphasize that research findings probably lack novelty. However, there are other research findings which have novelty. For example, on page 47-48, you give a definition of the public actor. On page 171, you give a definition of arbitrability. Unfortunately, you did not include this research finding and many other interesting research findings in the list of research findings to be defended during the public defense. For example, the arbitration documents that you are describing, the analysis of different disputes that you include in the dissertation are very interesting, but for some reason you did not include very interesting research findings in this list of research findings to be defended. I would like to emphasize that the dissertation by Viktor Eremin makes an important contribution to legal sciences, and it deals with many important issues. The dissertation, Arbitrability of Disputes Involving Public Actors, complies with the major requirements set forth in order as of the 1st of September 2016, number 6821, on the procedure of granting academic degrees at St. Petersburg State University, and Viktor Eremin can be awarded the academic degree of the candidate of legal sciences, scientific specialty 513, private law, civil law sciences. The dissertation is compliant with sections 9 and 11 in the above mentioned order. Thank you. Thank you very much. I give the floor to Professor Yuri Monastyrsky. Dear members of the Dissertation Council, it's a great honor for me to participate in this session of the Dissertation Council. Thank you for inviting me here. I will focus on the most relevant parts of my report. The dissertation is submitted in conformity with the degree of the candidate of legal sciences. It deals with the system of arbitration courts and with the arbitrability of disputes involving public actors. The topic of the dissertation is relevant and it requires further research. The dissertation deals with public actors and with the cases when the actions of the arbitrability are not effective or lack efficiency. I would like to emphasize that the Russian legal community really requires clarification in the issues that the dissertation deals with. Unfortunately, we do not see an increase in the number of disputes resolved in arbitration courts. And the academic degree seeker has chosen a very relevant topic, and he focuses on the arbitrability of disputes involving public actors. This gives a new impact and moreover it will allow to expand the jurisdiction of courts of arbitration. This will also allow us to overcome such some deadlocks. Sometimes the courts of arbitration depend on courts of higher instances, and it makes the procedure very slow. There is no clear understanding of the jurisdiction of the courts of arbitration in the Russian Federation. The jurisdiction is limited by the concept of the public interest. And this involves the aspect of the fact that the public actors are not independent, are not fully independent. So public interest in our theory has not been thoroughly researched. Prior research of the dissertation after the reform is not enough. The dissertation has theoretical significance because it sort of criticizes the instrument that is currently being involved. Pro-arbitration assumptions, which are given in the dissertation, can be used for public control or for enforcing the decisions of courts of arbitration. The academic degree seeker talks about such basic legal institutes as arbitrability, public law, and so on. Moreover, I would like to say that the dissertation also focuses on some issues of civil law. Therefore, I suppose that this is a very well-written research paper. Now, a few words about my critical remarks. The academic degree seeker focuses on the public element. It is quite challenging to define it. And it should be included in the doctrinal frameworks. The academic degree seeker chose some terms which probably are not quite clear. I suppose that you should have provided more explanation of what a public actor is. Moreover, there is an opposition between public and private. And some phrases have already been included in the some phrasing has already been included in the Russian law. The European Court for Human Rights has a different definition of the public actor and public entity. So I suppose you should have come up with a different term. Maybe state company, public-private legal entity, and some others. Moreover, there is such a concept as public limited company, so the word public has specific connotations in the legal discourse. Therefore, when the academic degree seeker speaks about public actors, which are supervised, which are controlled, we see some uncertainty and we see some unclarity in the terms and in the terminology. And terminological framework, clear terminological framework is instrumental for any legal research. So my general critical remark is to enhance the terminological framework that you use. The dissertation is well written and it follows the best traditions of St. Petersburg State University. It also provides interesting material for academic discussions. The academic degree seeker has his own opinion and he does not use the European practice as an alternative for what we have in this country. Mainly strict control in the area. The academic degree seeker focuses on different aspects which allow him to provide a detailed analysis of the issues. The author should be given merit for writing the dissertation in a logical way. And I suppose that the academic degree seeker was able to complete all the tasks set in the dissertation. So I have a positive assessment of the dissertation. The dissertation by Viktor Eremin, Arbitrability of Disputes Involving Public Actors, complies with the major requirements set forth in the relevant order issued by St. Petersburg State University on the 1st of September 2016, number 6821/1. The academic degree seeker Viktor Eremin can be awarded the academic degree of the candidate of legal sciences, scientific specialty 513, private law, civil law sciences. The dissertation is compliant with sections 9 and 11 of the above-mentioned order. Thank you. Thank you very much. I give the floor to Professor Vladimir Yarkov. Dear Chairperson, dear members of the Dissertation Council, can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to participate in this session of the Dissertation Council in St. Petersburg State University. I really liked the dissertation The dissertation is in line with the research conducted by Professor Oleg Skvortsov, who writes extensively about courts of arbitration. The dissertation complies with the new scientific specialty 513. It has everything: private law, arbitration, procedural law, and so on. So it complies with the new scientific specialty 513. The topic is also relevant when we talk about national law and international law. You have published 17 papers, you have made presentations at 9 conferences. This proves that the academic degree seeker focused on his research single-mindedly. The academic degree seeker deals with a challenging issue. The issue poses a challenge both to Russian legal community and to international legal community. Once I was asked to study materials for a specific case, and there are lots of unclarities here. For example, the general law has its own criteria. It is not important for them if we are dealing with public or with private categories. And the academic degree seeker outlined a very important approach to the issue. On the one hand, this approach complies with the Russian tradition when we divide law into private and public, material and procedural. At the same time, his research is not in contradiction with the continental law and with the common law. In my opinion, the modern arbitration results from the common law rather than from other types of law. I would like to focus on the critical remark, on the critical part. I would like to emphasize again that I really liked the dissertation. I will reiterate my critical remarks. The research finding number 5 to be defended states that the law should include the rules for the admissibility of arbitration, for the ability of the referring of the case to the Court of Arbitration by public actors. I would like to ask the academic degree seeker what is meant here. Do you talk about the admissibility of resolving a case by a Court of Arbitration within the framework of arbitrability? This is within the scope of the federal law. Or do you suppose that the international law, with the participation of the Russian Federation, can also be instrumental here? So could you please clarify here? There is no clarification of the approval given by the authorities, by the relevant authorities. I would like to say that there have been some changes in the procedural law. Still, I would like to clarify your opinion about the subdependence this is a very complicated issue. So when we talk about the subject matter jurisdiction is included in the doctrine of the procedural law. Moreover, some other documents also have this category. Finally, I would like to ask you about such issues as subject matter jurisdiction and arbitrability. I don't think that subject matter jurisdiction should be described as it is defined in the dissertation. My research advisor, Professor Yuri Osipov, wrote about contractual subject matter jurisdiction, and I agree with his definition in this issue. It includes other types of courts, not only the Court of Arbitration in the scope. However, it is emphasized that the dissertation is very interesting, and therefore I would like to ask these questions and to ask the academic degree seeker to clarify them. The dissertation is positively assessed by myself, and the critical remarks do not change my positive assessment of the dissertation. The dissertation is logically written, it contains novelty, and the academic degree seeker makes a contribution to legal sciences, both in private law and in procedural law. We had a different scientific specialty before, which included different types of law. So the dissertation has theoretical and practical relevance, and the academic degree seeker can be awarded the candidate of the legal sciences. Thank you. Thank you very much. I give the floor to Professor Moros. Thank you very much. I would like to thank you for inviting me to participate in this session of the Dissertation Council. I wasn't sure I would be able to participate because we didn't have the internet connection for some time, but now I have an opportunity to participate in this major event. I will follow the chairperson's advice, and I will not read it out from beginning to end. I will focus on the most relevant parts of my report. You can read the text of the report on the official website of St. Petersburg State University. At the outset, I would like to say that the topic of the dissertation is relevant and important. At present, it is known that the function of courts and the court shouldn't be the only way to resolve issues by public actors, and the Court of Arbitration is an alternative way for the resolution of disputes. Therefore, the topic of the dissertation is very up to date. There are some challenges in this area. However, there is a positive trend here, and more disputes are being resolved by courts of arbitration. Moreover, foreign investors sometimes avoid taking matters to the national courts. They also avoid taking matters to the courts of arbitration which are registered in the host country. Why is it so? There is no trust in the court system and in the legal system. So our task here is to create the legal environment which will allow us to defend the rights of the investors. In this regard, the dissertation is very up-to-date and relevant. Now a few words about the research outcomes, about the research findings. The academic degree seeker has included 5 research findings in the list of research findings to be defended. However, there are much more interesting research findings in the dissertation. In general, I would like to say that it will be interesting for the legal community to read the dissertation and the research findings that it has. Moreover, it is emphasized this is the first comprehensive research of the arbitrability of disputes involving public actors. This fact makes the dissertation instrumental for legal sciences. The dissertation complies with the scientific specialty 513, Private Law, Civil Law Sciences. We used to have some challenges when we identified the compliance of the dissertation with a specific scientific specialty. Now we have a new scientific specialty and we are lucky to have it. When I was defending my dissertation, there were many issues whether the dissertation should fall within the scope of the private law or civil law or any other type of law. This dissertation is a comprehensive research which deals with procedural law and private law. It makes the dissertation even more important and more interesting. I believe that interdisciplinary research is really important. The academic degree seeker has published many research papers and has made presentations at various conferences. The dissertation has theoretical and practical significance. The research findings can be used for teaching. For example, you could develop a course on arbitrability of disputes involving public actors. Now a few words about my critical remarks, as is always the case. My critical remarks are as follows. First of all, the academic degree seeker writes that legal entities with public participation, both commercial and commercials, are regarded as public actors. I suppose you should have included more strict criteria when it comes to defining public actors. You talk about the majority participation as well in your dissertation. So I suppose you should provide some clarification here. Now I would like to focus on the following issue. You talk about the admissibility and about the limitation in your dissertation. I suppose you should have used different a term here. You are talking about the limitation of subjects. You shouldn't be talking about subjective limitation because you're talking about actors here. I'm sorry? Now I would like to say that the Russian law does not provide any clear definition here as well. According to the Russian law, the Court of Arbitration is not entitled, or rather the law of Kazakhstan states that the Court of Arbitration is not entitled to resolve some issues or to resolve some disputes, and the law of Kazakhstan gives a list of rules which allow the public actor to take the matter to court. But this legal provision is not implemented very often, so including something in the law does not ensure the enforceability. However, the critical remarks do not change the overall positive assessment of the dissertation. The dissertation by Viktor Eremin complies with the major requirements set forth in the relevant order of St. Petersburg State University, and the academic degree seeker, Viktor Eremin, can be awarded the academic degree of the candidate of legal sciences, scientific specialty 513. The dissertation is compliant with sections 9 and 11 of the above mentioned order. Thank you very much. Now I would like to read out my own report on the dissertation. My overall assessment of the dissertation is positive. It complies with the major requirements. But I have a dubious impression of the dissertation. On the one hand, the dissertation provides a detailed analysis, a very lengthy analysis of the issue that he is researching. The dissertation is quite long, about 300 pages. This is not a reproach. As far as I remember, your research advisor also wrote a very long dissertation, about 500 pages. My colleagues have emphasized lots of positive aspects. The dissertation is relevant and up-to-date. It has novelty. My colleagues have emphasized that you have published numerous papers and have participated in different conferences. We see that the academic degree seeker is really interested in the topic. But in my opinion, research should focus on the research findings. There's a GOST state standard for scientific research, and this state standard talks about the necessity to provide a brief and clear summary. For example, when it comes to research in physics, a clear formula is very important. What do we see in this dissertation? You give a list of 5 research findings. And I'm inclined to agree with my colleagues. There is an assumption, there is a framework, but in your research findings, you sort of provide the information which is sometimes self-evident. I would like to be more specific here. So the academic degree seeker states that the theoretical novelty of the research is connected with the fact that this is the first dissertation about arbitrability of disputes involving public actors. This is a standard wording for the dissertation, but this wording, this phrasing, does not allow us to see your personal contribution to the development of the topic. We can come to the conclusion that the dissertation has novelty after we have read the body of the dissertation. The research findings to be defended also do not give us a clear idea of the novelty of the research. State participation in private law should and is connected with the alternative way of settlement resolution. So I suppose that the law limits the ability of the public actors of taking the matter to the arbitration court. So you need an admissibility here. Instead of giving a list of cases which cannot be taken to the arbitration court, they provide a very unclear list of rules. So I suppose that this provides further legal uncertainty. And the academic degree seeker makes reference to my research paper in his dissertation, which makes a very good framework for writing a very interesting research finding to be defended. I would like to emphasize that the first research finding to be defended is quite interesting. It deals with the conservative system which includes strict control over arbitration tribunals. However, this does not exclude the legal uncertainty that we have in the area, namely when it comes to resolving of disputes by public actors in arbitration tribunals. And here we expect to see some suggestions which will allow us to get rid of these uncertainties. However, the other research findings to be defended are self-evident. So you give a list of public actors, and this is not enough for this topic. There is no novelty here. Professor Svetlana Moroz has talked about this research finding to be defended. I suppose you have written about it in a different way. I suppose you should have included some novelty here. You the administrative code talk about the equality. And this also provides some unclarity. Next, I would like to say that the next research finding to be defended is not quite clear. It is not quite clear what you wanted to say here, but I'm pretty sure that you wanted to say something. Then again, you write about uncertainty, and the question arises, how do we get rid of this uncertainty? Finally, you talk about two tools: direct list of rules in the law, namely the list of rules which talk about the admissibility of arbitration, of the cases that can be taken to the arbitration court, and the list of rules which exclude some cases from being resolved by courts of arbitration. I do not see anything new here, I suppose. I have a feeling that you think that the law should provide a list of disputes that can be referred to the Court of Arbitration. If this is so, this expands the existing system that we have. The modern society should provide a list of disputes that cannot be, I emphasize, the list of cases, the list of disputes that cannot be referred to the arbitration tribunal. Therefore, all the others can be referred to the arbitration tribunal. Well, this is my personal ideas. However, in order to participate in the discussion, it is instrumental to understand the idea of your opponent. I suppose that it is possible to deduce your overall opinion and your rationale, but it is possible to do so only after I read the dissertation. Well, I would like to emphasize that my critical remarks are quite debatable, and they are connected with the fact that the research findings are not clearly formulated. So the dissertation complies with the major requirements set forth in the relevant order of St. Petersburg State University, and Viktor Eremin can be awarded the degree of the candidate of legal sciences, scientific specialty 513. Thank you. Now let us continue with the agenda. The next item on the agenda is answers to the questions. Please, you are given the floor. Thank you very much for your reports. I would like to provide my comments about the reports. I would like to start with the report written by Professor Makarova. Her first remark was about the structure. I agree with this remark. It is emphasized that it was quite difficult for me to decide where I should start my research. In my second chapter, I was planning to write about arbitrability in more detail. I would agree that some definitions are not quite clear. The name of the item 1.3 deals with the commercial disputes, deals with the commercial law. This is to exclude all other types of courts of arbitration. Here I wanted to focus on public actors as equal participants. When it comes to research findings to be defended, I suppose that the novelty of the research findings concerns the conservative system in the Court of Arbitration in the Russian Federation. The research finding number 2 deals with the definitions of public actors and so on. I regard public actors according to the civil code, and I make reference to the civil code in my dissertation. I suppose this was the right thing to do in the research. Public entities with state participation do not have any limitations. Therefore, they do not have a separate status. They should be regarded as public-private entities. But this is not right, I suppose. I write about this aspect in one of the paragraphs of my dissertation. So I try to be tentative sometimes. I'm writing about the gradual incorporation of some terms in the Russian law. Because there is no clear understanding of what a public entity is. For example, central bank, state corporations. This doctrine can be expanded here. I did not include any radical statements in my research findings to be defended. I try to include the formulation which talks about the gradual implementation of the doctrine. Now, research finding number 3. The research finding shows the contradiction that we see when it comes to resolution of disputes involving public actors by courts of arbitration. The state gives some possibility to refer some matters to the Court of Arbitration, and there are arbitration clauses in the contract. However, what we see in practice does not promote this trend. Courts are limiting the arbitrability of many disputes. And after I submitted my dissertation, it turned out that anti-competition authorities excluded the contract with the arbitration clause. So it means that the arbitrability is not being expanded at the moment. I do not tend to expand the concept of arbitrability when it comes to public actors. I think we need admissibility with specific limitations. I do not support the liberal approach. My approach would allow to clarify the limitations and to clarify the cases when the matter can be taken to court. The concept of the public element, I suppose, should be enshrined in law. In other words, we should probably give a list of disputes that can be or cannot be taken to the Court of Arbitration. Now, I would like to answer the questions posed by Professor Yuri Monastyrsky. He talked about my use of public actor about how I wrote about public actor. I would like to assert that there is no standard understanding of public actors in the Russian legal doctrine. I don't think we should focus on public actors which are clearly regarded as public actors. It was interesting for me to have a broader approach here and to give a more expanded look on the category. Yes, I understand that the term public actor is not commonly used in the doctrine. There's a very limited amount of research papers which deal with public actors. Speaking from now, I would probably use a different term. But whatever term you take, it will be debatable. So public actor was taken as some kind of compromise in order to provide a framework. Now, I would like to answer the next list of questions. Question posed by Professor Yarkov. So you talk about the authorization, and I suppose that the authorization by the executive bodies means that the state trusts a specific arbitration tribunal to conduct their activities. This was made to emphasize that the legal makers are following in the steps by writing a number of cases, by writing the disputes that can be taken to the Court of Arbitration. At the same time, we see that the law is implemented in a different way. Is this enough? Is writing, is enshrining something in the law enough? Well, this is not enough. Sometimes our authorities do not even read the law. I have already given you an example of the anti-competition authorities. You also asked me about subject matter jurisdiction. This is a relevant issue. Subject matter jurisdiction does not encompass courts of arbitration, and this term is used for state courts and other state bodies. So I wanted to show this transition from subject matter jurisdiction to jurisdiction or competence. You also asked about contractual subject matter jurisdiction. I have a broad understanding of this term. I provided only an opinion by Professor Kurechkin. This, I suppose, is just one opinion. Arbitrability and subject matter jurisdiction do not overlap. Arbitrability is sort of different from subject matter jurisdiction, and the subject matter jurisdiction deals with state courts. However, competence or jurisdiction is a broader concept. So this issue is very complicated. We can have a look at this issue from a different issue. For example, the relevant documents should probably include the definitions. Arbitrability as a term is not used in the Russian law, but the competence or jurisdiction is a distribution mechanism, if I may put it so. It is some sort of first stage of arbitrability, if I may put it so. Now I would like to answer the questions posed by Professor Moroz. The first question was about legal entities with public participation. I would like to say that I agree with you. Could you please give me a second? I made some generalizations in my dissertation. There is no standard definition of public actors. In my dissertation, the criteria of control was instrumental. So I gave some strict criteria which allowed me to identify public actors, such as public-private partnerships, legal entities with state participation, which have over 50% of the voting shares. I also included some other types of companies in public actors. I also included such criteria as the possibility to influence the decisions of the collegial governing body. When it comes to the research finding to be defended number 5, I write about 2 legal tools here. I would like to agree that the Russian law divides arbitrability into subjective and objective, which is not quite right. We should divide it into subject arbitrability and object arbitrability. But this is a common term, which was with this a common division. These terms were introduced by Professor Lebedev several decades ago. I haven't come across the use of other terms in this regard. So I decided to use the common terms in my dissertation. So this is standard terminology, and I do not see why I should correct this term since it's a standard term. However, it is emphasized that this critical remark was very up to the point. You also talked about the arbitrability in Kazakhstan. In my dissertation, I talk about the necessity to clarify the mechanism in the law. And it is state courts that will be overseeing the activities of the courts of arbitration. I think this is a very comprehensive issue which requires further consideration. Now I would like to write about the report presented by Professor Papandopoulou. The dissertation has much more research findings than those written in the introduction. However, I would like to say that my dissertation fills in the gap which exists in Russian legal sciences. The second research finding gives a list of public actors which I identified in order to write the dissertation. But the issue here is much more complicated. In many cases, the public actors have a public interest. Therefore, in my second research, I write about the necessity to give some clarification here. I decided not to quote the provisions of the Civil Code in my dissertation. I suppose that we should identify specific public actors with public interest, the way it is done in Germany or in the Netherlands. Now, about the research finding number 4. Research finding number 4 talks about the conservative system in the arbitration. The state does not prohibit public actors from participating in the arbitration. But At the same time, the logic of the conservative system makes the matters even more complicated, and this trend is supported by the court rulings. Research finding number 4 sort of continues research finding number 3, where the lawmaker does not provide specific instructions. The court will not focus on the enforceability of the arbitration decision. And here I provide 2 scenarios to give a list of cases to be resolved in the arbitration, or to give a limiting list of, or rather a list of public actors that cannot take their matters to the Court of Arbitration. I realize that this research finding is quite debatable. Now, your question about research finding number 5. I suppose that the system that we have now is enough. I don't see any assumptions or any reasons for changing it. The problem is in the court rulings and in the enforceability. There have been reforms. However, rulings made by courts of arbitration are sometimes made null and void. So this makes the matters even more complicated. However, I suppose if we provide more clarity here, public actors will refer the disputes to the Court of Arbitration more and more often. Thank you. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, are you satisfied with the answers provided by the academic degree seeker? Yes, I am satisfied. I am also satisfied with his answers. So does anybody want to make a presentation or want to ask questions? Does anybody want to make a presentation or to ask questions? Now we're supposed to read out the questions which we received via email. We have not received any questions via email. Now I give the floor to the research supervisor, Professor Skvortsov. Please talk about the academic degree seeker. Please talk about the academic degree seeker and his work. Do you think I should go to the microphone? I will be brief. I'm really satisfied with our mutual work. This is how I can characterize our mutual work. First of all, I would like to paraphrase Immanuel Kant about equality. Everyone understands what public actors are, but when it comes to giving a definition of public actors, it becomes extremely complicated. Now I would like to quote Vladimir Lenin. Before debating something, we should define the terms. We decided to write about arbitrability. But the term public actor is used in different meanings. I suppose that there are so many uncertainties in the legal system, and there are so many variants of one term which are used even by lawmakers. And this chaos in the terminological system allowed us to write the dissertation. There's a dichotomy here. So what is a public actor? It is necessary to understand what a public actor is in order to include it into the doctrine. And I think the academic degree seeker wrote the decision really successfully. I believe that he was right to choose control as the main criteria here for defining public actors. But before doing that, he made really extensive research of the existing research papers. Arbitrability is another important issue in the dissertation. Arbitrability is an instrument of state policy. Public order and arbitrability are the two things which are important here. States oversees the functions of the courts of arbitration. After the reform, the matters became even more complicated, but arbitrability is the main tool of the state policy, and the academic degree seeker was able to show this. So I suppose that the academic degree seeker was able to give a clear definition and to provide an in-depth analysis. I would like to thank all the members of the Dissertation Council. Thank you for challenging the academic degree seeker. Since there are does anybody want to ask a question or to make a presentation? Since nobody wants to ask a question, I would like to put an end to the academic discussion. Let us move on to the next item on our agenda. The next item on the agenda is as follows. I am supposed to ask the members of the Dissertation Council and the academic degree seeker. Are there any questions or objections about the procedure, including the remote session, including the remote participation? I will be asking everyone in turn. Professor Makarova, I don't have any objections. Professor Monastyrsky, I don't have any objections. I really liked everything. Everything was up to the point. Thank you. Professor Yarkov, everything is okay. Everything is fine. Professor Svetlana Moroz, I don't have any objections. I don't have any objections either. I don't have any objections as well. before starting the voting, we can have a break, we can have a technical break and switch off the broadcast. Do you think we need such a technical break? Or do you think we can start the voting procedure by saying yes or no? Do we need a break? No, I don't need a break. No, I don't think we need a break. So we don't need a break. It will save time. We're beginning the open voting on the issue of conferring the academic degree to Viktor Eremin, Scientific Specialty 513, Private Law, Civil Law, Sciences. It is emphasized that by voting in favor, each member of the Dissertation Council states that item 11 of the order has not been violated. Here I quote: "The academic degree seeker shall make references to the sources that have been used to write the dissertation. If the academic degree seeker used the research findings obtained by the degree seeker themselves or in collaboration, the academic degree seeker shall point this out." Let me remind you that the decision of the Dissertation Council on conferring the academic degree is positive, provided more than 50% of the Council members have voted in favor. This is in conformity with Section 23. Professor Olga Makarova, what's your opinion? I vote in favor of conferring the academic degree of the candidate of legal sciences, Scientific Specialty 153, Private Law, Civil Law, Sciences. Well, you can just say yes or no. Professor Yuri Monastyrsky, I vote in favor of conferring the academic degree to Viktor Eremin, and I would like to thank him for his research. I sent it out to my colleagues and everybody liked this dissertation. Everyone was impressed by it. Professor Vladimir Yarkov, I vote in favor of conferring the academic degree. Professor Svetlana Moroz, I vote in favor of conferring the academic degree. I'm Professor Papandopoulou, the chairperson of the Dissertation Council. I also vote in favor of conferring the academic degree. Now let us count the votes. Out of 5 members of the Academic Degree Council, 5 have voted in favor. Nobody has voted against or abstained from voting. Our decision is as follows. Viktor Eremin is awarded the academic degree of the candidate of legal sciences, Scientific Specialty 513, Private Law, Civil Law, Sciences. I give the floor to the academic degree seeker, but at first let us congratulate him on being conferred the academic degree. I would like to wish him every success in his research. Please note that at first we should identify the terms, but the terms should be identified in such a way that everyone understands it. So it's your fault that I didn't understand your terms correctly. Thank you very much. I would like to thank the chairperson of the Dissertation Council and the members of the Dissertation Council for writing their reports. Let me thank my mentor and my research advisor, Professor Oleg Skvortsov. I would like to thank the reviewers for reading my research. I would like to thank the staff of the Department of Commercial Law. I would like to thank Professor Papandopoulou for his support. I would like to thank Professor Makarova, Professor Gorodo, and many others. Thank you. I would like to thank the main editor of the journal, Tretiyskiy Sud. I would like to thank Professor Maslova for her advice. I would like to thank those who came to attend to the defense. My dissertation is devoted to my granddad, and I would like to thank my grandmother who is watching the broadcast online. I suppose this is the beginning of my research. Thank you. So this is the end. This is the end of the session of the Dissertation Council. Thank you. Switch off the broadcast.